Please join me in praying that I don't say something we all regret. These are dangerous times. Mr. President, are you sure about this? It's not a coincidence that in the scriptures poverty is mentioned more than 2,100 times.
Look in my eyes, what do you see?
These issues are as alive as they ever were.
Neon lights, Nobel Prize, when a mirror speaks, the reflection lies.
This is not about charity, it's about justice. Justice and equality are mates, aren't they? Justice always wants to hang out with equality, and equality is a real pain in the ass.
I'm the smiling face of your TV.
I changed the channel.
Oh, there's a law of compensation, and there's an accounting to be held, an accounting that shall make the depression of 1929 seem as a prosperity when it breaks upon you.
Only you can set you free. The cult of personality.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
You gave me fortune. You gave me fame. You gave me power in your God's name.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Indigenous Nightmare Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed the last episode that I had with Comrade Clint, where we got into conviction theory, kind of, what abolition is and how it's been co-opted in some forms. So that the next episode for that will probably be, like I said, in that episode, it'll either be 2, 3, or 4. Now it'll probably be 4 or 5. Since this one has taken spark. I am sick, so I do have a little bit of brain fog, and I will try and get through this. But I do have someone who you guys have seen before on this podcast, so most of which you guys follow as well, and that is Diallo Kenyatta. How you doing, Diallo?
Where you
How you doing, man? I know you were sick.
I guess you asked. That's how I'm doing.
I had to. As soon as I seen that episode, I was like, I'm not letting this go. I'm not letting that go. And there was another ski you did, but I was like, no, this is the perfect one, right?
Listen, let you hear what the brothers say. Sexy Red is destroying our culture, and I'm a victim, brother.
I'm a victim.
I was a Puritan, brother. I was wholesome and pure, and now, like the brothers are saying, all them manosphere cats.
How you doing, though? I know this is a
Sexy
new
Red
year.
is rotting my brain.
I know this is a new year for everybody. So I do want to say, how has the year treated you? I know you were sick a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of got over it. Me, I'm sick now. But how has 2024 treated you so far? And
so far, I've been in the house, man. I've been on the porch. I've been locked down.
Yeah,
so
you haven't been on the sidewalk as you normally do.
I ain't been in the streets. I ain't been right. I'm up on the sidewalk while y'all can have the street. Give me the well-lit, shoveled sidewalks. But yeah. So I slowed down. It's good because my wife and I, we were kind of had an ailment at the same time, and we just took some time and relaxed and recuperated. So this was actually a good, end of year, new year time for us. Even though we were under the weather, it provided us some time to just sit and stare, which, you don't value it until you're forced to do it. So it was a sit and stare. I'm back on my feet. I've been on my feet, a little under a week. So, with all the time I had to reflect and plan and recuperate. So, I'm glad to be back on my feet, back to work, and back on top of everything. So You know,
Well, that's glad, and I'm good to hear that. I know
but I'm
you
gonna
you
be
speak
mindful because I don't want to have that damn flu again in order to know
you don't want
to
the
just
plague of flesh.
cool and relax. You know,
No,
soft life.
I'm
We need to bring
right
that
now
from our
I'm
brothers and
wheezing. I'm
sisters in the
wheezing while I'm
continent.
coughing.
Yeah, non-materialistic soft life.
Well, today's episode we are going to be getting into ecotourism, Ecocide, and Omnicide. Omnicide is something that I'm kind of new to, so I'm
Mhm.
hoping bro Diallo could could kind of explain some of that in his
All right.
in his best form. But that's really going to be the conversation. We live in a society where they tell us go green, not really understanding that even going green right now is a problem
Scam.
because it's we're extracting metals resources from other places, i.e. Congo, Bolivia, places like here, fracking for fossil fuels. All of this has a lot to do with ecotourism, ecocide, and what would be omnicide is Diallo would describe it. So this conversation I'd like to, if we could start off with, is ecotourism, because we got a lot of individuals that are like, I'm gonna go on vacation, I'm going on vacation, I'm going here, I'm going there, but aren't really, theoretically sound and understanding, okay, well, why is America allowed to promote these countries as vacation spots? It's because they work and are intertwined in making people believe that the lands that are over there were never inhabited by indigenous people. And anywhere you go, I have a person that's associated with this podcast that's in Tanzania right now. And she's nowhere near, in my opinion, nowhere near any people that would be of indigenous to Tanzania at all.
Right.
Around a lot of white folks, around a lot of white people that they control these national parks, they control large plottages of land that in essence were stripped and taken away from indigenous people. And this is all across the globe. I can name the Philippines, I can name any places in South America, places here in North America. My people from California, every fucking national and park, every state park, that is in California is indigenous territory that has been stripped and taken away. So like when people have this idea, oh, I'm gonna go on a vacation, they're not really understanding what that entails and how that is a product of ecotourism, because people see, oh, I want to live here now. So now you become a settler, or you have the idea of becoming a settler in another country, thinking that it's okay. You're living in reciprocity with the people, and you're not. These people are your squires. They end up becoming, the true people who inhabit those areas become either workers, laborers for rich white folks, getting them to go on these little trips through the jungle and whatnot and everything. So I'd like to get your opinion on vacations, ecotourism, and how it is deeply intertwined in what you call white hegemony and what I'm starting to call white hegemony, and how it aids it aids capitalism, it aids imperialism, it aids everything that we should be questioning. You know, spending thousands of dollars to go elsewhere when we have people here who don't have food, people who don't have adequate water, or even adequate housing. So,
Well, I do support vacation. Support working poor and working class people taking leisure. I'm a co-host on a show called Earn Your Liberation, because there is another a league of grifters called Earn Your Leisure, and there's this Western concept that was born out of what is called the Protestant work ethic, that leisure is a source of sin, that the leisure of the idle, being idle is the devil's workshop, or idleness is the devil's workshop, or idle hands lead to evil. So there, in Western culture, in European culture, going into from the time of the monarchs and the peasantries and the serfs, there is this idea that humanity is inherently sinful, inherently slothful, which is one of the 7 deadly sins. And the only way to purify a human soul is through pain and suffering, through self denial, and through work. And that if you are not working in a perpetual state of labor, then you are vulnerable to the whims of evil and demonic forces. So when that was the culture that colonized the world, the Protestant work ethic. But you also find it prior to that in some of the older Western traditions. Even in Judaism, there's this concept of forced or mandated rest, where the Sabbath, where people were literally mutilated and maimed and killed for working on the Sabbath. And so even when you were taking leisure time, it was something that even that unto itself it wasn't so much you relax for peace, or you relax mandated relaxation, where if you push a button or turn a knob, they're going to chop your hand off or burn your house down. So even the whole concept of work and relaxation coming out of Western culture has always been, for lack of a better term, because it's thrown around quite a bit, toxic, dysfunctional, maladaptive, and psychopathic. So when they came upon indigenous people, and they didn't find cultures that mandated relaxation or mandated labor, you will find many early colonial writers, colonial administrators, and administrators and missionaries would talk about African labor practices and values, or in other indigenous labor, Aboriginal people, certain peoples of Southeast Asia and island cultures, where they said people would work in what was called fits and starts. So they might get up and do a burst of work, whether they do agricultural work, hunter-gatherer work, herdsmen, fishermen, or craftsmen. They might work intensely for an hour or two and then take the rest of the day off. There was no fixed schedule. There was really no strict hierarchy management system. And so they were like, well, these primitive people who don't have development, so they turn work into a holy effort. They turned rest and relaxation into a reward, or something that is a potential source of sin, or something that is not natural or innate to the human existence, but something you had to earn, something that if you overindulged in, you're in bad. So all that to say is this actual concept of rest, relaxation, vacation, labor, appropriate amount of labor, grind, hustle. And I always think whenever they say hustle, if you had called my grandfather a hustle, he would feel that insulted, because just a hustle is a person who puts in, who gets work done shoddily and as quickly as possible and overcharges you. Hustling was a bad thing, and now we've turned that into a compliment. I'm a hustler, something we brag about, but that's another, I don't want to digress. All that to say is, for us to really grasp, we take for granted how much culture, history, politics, policy, and how much liberation is rooted in these concepts of vacation and labor, in relaxation and expenditure of our effort and life forces. So with all that understanding and how much it actually goes into, and it's just like, well, should people vacation or not? They have managed to commodify this to say, well, vacation should be a getting away from the grind, where people put more work into their vacation and put more money into their vacation than their labor.
Yeah.
I'm sure if it's not your own experience, you've observed people in your life to say, oh, we're getting ready to go somewhere. And damn near a whole family break up, couples break up. There's a whole genre of YouTube videos of couples, married or romantic, intimate couples who are on vacation, beating the shit out of each other, fighting, throwing shit out of hotel rooms, because it's one of the most stressful and dysfunctional, like forced to have a good time. So I think the concept of leisure is not something that we have to get away from. Earning leisure being the concept of something we have to expend resources or effort in to take a vacation. Because what does vacate means? To get rid of. Throw shit out. To expel, to cleanse, really. So I support vacation. We just have to, because a lot of times things that we should embrace, we've we look at the capitalist or market manipulation and perversion of things, and we take that as the standard, and we throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Yeah.
So commodified vacations tied to the concept that you is something you earn or accumulate as a byproduct of your labor being exploited, something that is has a hierarchy in terms of something you have to expend a massive amount of money, a massive amount of planning, and a massive amount of social capital, meaning that, you know, I've been in cocktail parties and I've been in spaces, gallery openings where people are, oh, we just got back from the south of France, or oh, we just toured the Isle of Man. And so it's something where it is a status symbol. So what I say is we have to revolutionize vacation. You know, one of my favorite forms of taking a break are sit down and wildcat strikes, where everybody, all the workers, coordinate amongst themselves, no paperwork, no HR, say, hey, we ain't doing shit. We're going to sit down or walk away, and we'll be back when we get back. To send the bosses, the managers, the owners, the investors a message that you need us more than we need you. Oh, the workers went on strike. It wasn't a strike. We just decided to shut shit down.
We went on vacation.
Yeah. So I don't want to say vacations are bad. But I do think that say, hey, when I'm not working, I need to be using the fiat that I earned through my labor to go out and exploit other people's vulnerabilities. You know, if you can't vacation in your front yard, if you can't vacation amongst the people you see every day, if the only way to truly feel relief, the only way to feel vacated, empty, to unload yourself is to like, as Ice-T said, I gotta leave a damn country just to have some fun. You know, if that's where we are, we really are caught up in the capitalist warped mind state of hyper commodification of all human relationships. So I think we need to not condemn or abandon vacations, but reclaim and revolutionize vacations, make them pedestrians, working class, people-centered, community-centered vacation. And vacate really means reassessing and vacating all this shit that is built up on us by the system that exploits our labor and oppresses us. So I mean, and let me say one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
The real work is the work of liberating ourselves, liberating humanity, liberating Africa, liberating the land, liberating the people, and restoring ecosystems.
Yeah.
If we have to start defining that as the real work that is primary and above and beyond our wage labor. And so then when you start to think, well, what's the real work? What's the real work? What is the real expenditure of my time, talent, and resources? The purpose that I define for myself, as opposed to agendas and values that are imposed on me through the threat to my survival or my capacity to free myself. And I think when we think of that, saying, hey, what is taking a break from the real work? How do I renew and regenerate myself and reinvigorate myself to re-engage the struggle? I think we should think of that, because when I think about rest and relaxation, it's more so say, hey, how do I step away from, you know, this daily grind, looking at the oppressors engage in oppression and be subjected to oppression all around me? What do I need to rejuvenate and recuperate and re-engage the struggle? You know, what actions do I need to take, and how much time do I need to take away to re-engage?
Yeah, no, and you hit it right on the nails. You know, the commodification of vacations and how that is even intertwined in, you know, how it's intertwined in Ecocide, you know, and how people taking these large trips on these big ass planes, these 770, 720, you know, planes, you know,
Or
and
even
the
worse, the
emission.
private jets.
Yeah, the private jets that emit jet fuel, you know, that is far worse, you know, than anything else. You know, and emitting it into our air. You know, the fact that some of these areas, you know, that these people who go on vacations outside of, you know, the occupation, that are from here, you know, they come back, and you know, they in essence try and paint this picture like, oh, I'm revigorated now, you know, now I get to, you know, work 120 more hours, you know, to so I could get to my next vacation. And I think it's a ass backwards way of thinking, when it comes to, you know, rehabilitation, you know. And this is not to say to anybody who's taken a trip to outside of the country to learn something about themselves or learn something about their people. So I'm not refraining from people doing that at all. I just know that there's a lot of motherfuckers that are out here that go on trips every month, and try, you know, and enact this solidarity with indigenous people, like you know, like, we care that you're going and you're visiting these people. I don't They don't care. I don't care, so they don't care. You know, so
Well,
I think, you know, when go ahead. No, go ahead.
no. Outside the Auschwitz labor camp, there was this gates to Auschwitz, and they had something written in German that translated into "work will set you free." And that was basically the myth that, you know, if you work really hard, you can work your way up and out of the concentration camp. And it was a lie, because what they had intended to do was exploit these people to death.
Yeah.
But they understood, being the master propagandists that they were, that one of the best ways to exploit someone's labor is to give them a false sense of hope, or the false sense of eventual relief from that work. And that's why, you know, when I hear Black people walking around talking about and supporting organizations or grant scams like Earn Your Leisure, which is another way to say work will set you free, and us associating our labor on behalf of capitalists, our labor on behalf of multinational corporation, our labor on behalf of the state, because I have been a former state employee, I've been a former corporate employee, I've been formerly self-employed. You know, I've touched on most stages of employment, except for management. You know, except for when I was a small business owner, but I've never been like promoted to management. You know, and I've done everything from literally fast food to corporate and high level not for profit organizations. And this concept that your work that other people define for you, and your work to reach other people's goals and objectives, number one, is a reward unto itself, and number two, will someday afford you the capacity to be self-driven, to be fully autonomous in your days and your decision making. But the reality is, they work you to death. And the freedom, when they say work will set you free, the freedom is the release of oblivion, the release of death. So, and it's especially pertinent for African people and other oppressed minorities, because we're also been, at the same time, we're in a Protestant work ethic culture. Work is akin to godliness. We were seen as demonic and godless. And we were also seen as people who were lazy, and a people who had a natural innate aversion to labor. To some pseudoscientists and European racist anthropologists would say, well, tropical weather, the closer you live to the equator, or the closer people who develop closest to the equator were besieged by high humidity and warm tropical weather and abundant fruit and abundant wildlife. So they didn't never develop the drive, because they could simply pick a mango or a banana, or they could walk to the coast and see all the fish damn near just jumping in the net. So that genetically, biologically, and culturally, we did not have the drive or the labor to work like Europeans had developed, who were trying to dig turnips out of frozen soil. So there's so many layers to this that we don't even think about. when we discuss amongst ourselves this concept of or this concept of being nomadic, people who are just driven by some feverish design, who didn't build permanent structures and cities, and these nomadic tribes, and they call us tribes, and who would just travel around the world following some random herd, or escaping the ravages of winter, or the floodplains, instead of building a dam and creating internal heating. So again, this topic is, so when we talk about work, it kind of is wild to me when I see Black people in this, from prosperity ministry, the prosperity ministry, God will bless you with abundance, and people getting up saying, God bless me with a promotion, God bless me with a raise, and you really think you're really psychopathic enough to think that God will bypass an abused trafficked child and a starving person and a person with a terminal illness to drop an extra 4 G's a month in your bank account, or help you win a Super Bowl. And our ongoing admiration of the accumulation of fiat, and the promotion of these Black moguls and these Black men, and then to the silliness where we have a whole graduating class of receiving LLCs, and they dancing in the streets because of this new nonsense about the entrepreneurial cult and the business class, where we really believe that entrepreneurialism is a path to liberation and empowerment, or a path where we can earn back stolen wealth. And the very concept of us earning back stolen wealth don't sit
I don't
right.
know if I should call out Boyce Watkins right now, but I'm gonna leave him alone.
Let Jared deal with him.
I'm not gonna bother.
Let Jared Ball deal with it, boys.
No, I that's the first name that came up when you were talking about this entrepreneur bullshit.
We had prosperity gospel, and it kind of got locked in, and then we came up with these prosperity politics.
Yep.
So before it was like, well, we if we stay true to the tenets, the whole point of embracing God and the Lord is it used to be God would bless the poor, the meek inherit the earth. And if you have nothing else, if you don't have land, if you don't have a home, at least you have the blessing of God. And there was this notion that God had a special place in his heart for the wretched and poor. And then prosperity gospel said no, and it adopted this Calvinistic view, saying that God displayed his worldly blessing through worldly possessions. So you have somebody like T.D. Jakes, who would, walk down his fleet and demonstrate his fleet of cars. I saw a video of him demonstrating his fleet of luxury cars. And at the end of this long line of luxury car, he opened the trunk and it was full of cash, hundreds of thousands of dollars of raw cash. And he was like, this is what the blessings are. Or Kanye West could stand up and say, I'm a billionaire and that God is using me to show out. So my billionaire status, my wealth is my testimony. And so a lot of political grifters, cultural grifters, Brother Polite, and to another degree, Dr. Fubar, the whole entire FBA and ADOS movement says, well, let's say instead of using God's blessing as a path to wealth, let's use our politics and ideology. So when it used to be Black politics and Black organization was centered around securing concessions, securing rights, advancing the cause of justice, the collective cause of justice, the resurrection and rediscovery of our lost history. There were a lot of things, but one thing that was always absent from the movement is enrichment or wealth. And some people would critique that, saying, well, the civil rights movement didn't have a financial component, which is not true. The civil rights movement didn't have a wealth building component, but the civil rights movement, Dr. King was accused of being communist. And throughout the civil rights movement, whether it is the liberal integrationists or the right wing or the left wing radicals, they all said there are communist infiltrators. So there was always an economic component, but the economic component centered around redistribution of resources, redistribution of wealth. So they wanted to democratize the economy, but that doesn't sit well, and that doesn't resonate with modern day grifters who want to deny that there was an economic component to the civil, but because that economic component always leads towards communism and socialism. So if you want to use the black rage, black discontent, black unity and solidarity for personal enrichment, then you have to distort, saying, oh, we got the vote and it didn't do nothing for us. And they ignore welfare. They condemn welfare. They condemn food stamps, housing, and they even promote the myth that, oh, it's food stamps and welfare checks that destroyed us. And so all that to say is prosperity politics pretty much remobilize. And it's whether you're going to march and sing "We Shall Overcome," or you're going to strap on the black leather and the black gloves and the beret and pick up the gun and be some hollow mimicry of the Black Panthers and Black Liberation Army, or whether they're going to evoke Garvey and talk about and say, well, we're going to resurrect Garvey and his economic mission. And it's all about prosperity. We can get, instead of getting prosperity through our faith, we can get prosperity through our politics. But the problem with that is that when you look at all of these prosperity politics, not only do they leave the systems and institutions of capitalism and white hegemony intact, they are directly dependent on sustaining capitalism and everything that goes to the hyper exploitation of the world's resources, the dominance of the dollar, the ADOS, these reparation hustlers ain't asking. They want fiat. They want greenbacks. So you have to maintain the petrodollar. And if you can in order to maintain the petrodollar, you have to maintain the carbon energy empire. In order to maintain the carbon energy empire, you need the military inputs, and you need the neocons and the neoliberal imperialistic. You need to maintain the infrastructure, the military bases, the surveillance, the intelligence. But they don't take it that far. All they take it to, hey, you as a black person with a U.S. citizenship, you can get a windfall of capital. But they don't talk about where that capital come from, and they don't even talk about where it's going, because we love the rag to riches story. We like to talk about how a black person can get rich, but we never talk about how black people sustain wealth. Whether it's Michael Jordan or some black titan of industry, we talk about getting paid. I'm going to get this money. But sustaining wealth is a whole nother skill set, because we've seen a lot of people get money. We saw Mike Tyson blow through almost $500 million. So people in finance understand getting a lot of money and maintaining a lot of money require two different skill sets, whether you sling and crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot. Michael Jordan has given away more money than he earned. He has given away more money than he earned with the NBA. The source of Michael Jordan's wealth is not NBA. It's not his basketball abilities. That's not the source of his wealth. He's given away more money. One of the top paid basketballs. He's given that more of that given away to charity. How did Michael Jordan sustain and expand his wealth? It wasn't through playing basketball. And he earned and sustained and expanded that wealth through finance capitalism, U.S. imperialism, and hyper exploitation of the labor and resources of the third world, the same way Bill Gates does it.
Elon Musk.
But somehow we look up and we think more Michael Jordans is a plus or a win for us.
And it's not.
Whereas you'll find people go online and be like, I hate Bill Gates. And they don't hate the system that creates and sustains Bill Gates, but they hate it's the weirdest shit.
Or people calling themselves capitalists, but not knowing that they're a byproduct of capitalism.
Yeah, they are the capital. You can't be the capital or the capitalist.
Well,
We are the capital. Right. I mean, literally, when the true capitalists go to negotiate, whether they're going into conflict or they're going to create some type of allegiances with other capitalists, the U.S. government and the multinational corporations and the oligarchs who control the U.S. Government and have domination over both of the dominant political parties, they use the U.S. labor force as collateral. They look at birth rates, incarceration rates, graduation rates. They look at the increase of communicable and pathological disease, which will eventually determine pharmaceutical and medical infrastructure. They look at us, the working class people, as a commodity that they can negotiate with other elites on a regional, national, and global scale. So we are the cap. You can't be capital and capitalist. You can't be a pimp and a hoe. There's at the same time. What Coup has a song. He said something to the effect that you're either a boss or a worker. He said labels are stable in this big world. Talking about sex, you're a boy or a girl. Talking economics, you're a boss or the worker. Talking about a con, you're the jerk or the jerk. Something like where he's like, you can't be both. What song is that? Labels, I don't know. It's from their first album.
Who you almost had me choking. You almost had me choking.
Go check it
now.
out. But right. I'm just saying, we like to believe that. And thanks to B.F. Skinner, Beyond Freedom and Dignity, the oppressive classes learned long ago to allow their victims, to allow their fodder, allow the human cattle to adopt titles and statuses. Because before, in the old world system of domination, if I'm a peasant and I start calling myself a nobleman, or I could be hung. If I was a peasant and I started saying that I was in the clergy, or God spoke to me, or I could be killed for blasphemy and heresy. If I was a slave and I called myself a free man, they would shackle me and mutilate my body, if not, But now they figured out, wait, we have these revolutions, we have these uprisings, we have all these discontents and malcontents. How about if we let the peasant call himself a nobleman or even a monarch? How about if we let the slave call himself a free man? How about if we let the worker call himself a boss? How about if we let the proletariat and the lumpen call themselves capitalist? And then they start agreeing with us and they start representing our interest. So just recently, we had a vote here to amend the Illinois Constitution to get rid of the flat tax and go back to a progressive tax. And literally, that tax would have only applied to, I think, about 2,000 people in the entire state, made enough for that to impact them. And those 2,000 people put up, I think, $80 million. I think it was over $80 million to defeat that, those 2,000 people. And the working class people were like, well, I don't want to have a progressive tax, because what about when I become a billionaire or a multimillionaire? What about when my child becomes a billionaire or multimillionaire? So that was a great trick that they pulled, where they let the peasants and the capital and the chattel and the oppressed and the slaves. And then we start fighting amongst each other,
right?
Calling, two populations of oppressed people, calling each other oppressors, targeting each other. So that came out of evil geniuses like B.F. Skinner and others, the technology of control, where they started having us, the masses, start to identify ourselves with the elites, and even misidentifying ourselves as the elites. And then we even start to pretend that the elites are persecuted, where you literally have populations on the internet talking about, well, the only people you can legally discriminate against are white males. And you have, straight pride movement, meninist movement, men are oppressed by feminist, heterosexual, cisgender people are oppressed by queer or transgender people. So that was deliberately and consciously done, and now it's shit is all up in the air. But I don't know, we all over the place. I'm sorry. Let me get back on
no, you're good, because it went right into Ecocide, and us kind of understanding, we have these like we have these uh microplastics, nanoplastics, emissions, and stuff like that. And people don't really understand, how this intertwines in ecocide and how this basically, if we continue to move the way that we are, uh, we won't be here. The Earth will, but we won't. It'll be a flu for Mother Earth, for a couple 100,000 years, and then she'll restart herself back up. But us, we don't have a whole lot of time by I've estimated, from looking at research and stuff like that, that by 2050 we will start to see, if not already seeing it now,
Start.
drastic declines in animal life, air quality.
Everything you're
uh
talking about as well as well in it ain't nothing starting. It's in motion.
it's in motion.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do have extinct animals, but on a more mass level than what we've
How could it
known,
be
or
more? I think mass extinction is we're in the Anthropocene.
okay.
This is the sixth mass extinction. We're
I would have to say, yeah.
officially within the thralls of a mass extinction. We're decades into a mass extinction. Plant life and animal life, complex life forms. We're in the thralls of it. Dozens of species a week.
Yeah. And we have people that are like, well, only if we go green. If we go green now, maybe it'll help, but not understanding the main components of what going green means under an
Well,
imperialist
going green
captive
doesn't
code.
mean anything. That
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's one of those
it's
things
a marketing scheme.
it's a
Right.
marketing tool that is used for people to, again, they're commodifying things like batteries, green batteries, that'll last long and whatnot, that are made out of, I'm getting a little brain fog, made with lithium batteries, these Tesla cars. All of this, it is extracted from other countries, and it's taken from indigenous people there. And that's why, like, when I read the book for Fresh Banana Leaves, she gives a kind of a historical understanding of what happened in South America, what certain things that happened in Northern America, and kind of gave from her father's perspective, her father being someone who had to migrate through wars, and whatnot, during the guerrilla warfares that were going on in South America. So she formulated a beautiful book, around her father's history, around her knowledge of ecotourism, of ecocide, of ecology, just everything that has to do with being either a naturalist, conservationship. And in this book, she points out people like John Muir, who I talked about, who created national parks that were taken from indigenous people, and then somehow, some way, were made to to where indigenous people there were wiped, or there was no indigenous people, there were no markers, there were no even recognition from past tense on indigenous people. So within this book, and I'm gonna give you something too. I don't know if you have this website. It's called libgen.is, and you can get any book you want off of there, any book that you need. So you don't got to go to Geechee no more. No, I'm just playing. I'm just no, no, but it's
Oh.
libgen.is, and you can I found Jared Ball's book on there. So it's a really educational website for people who like to read and want to read for free. But reading Fresh Banana Leaves, I have a different outlook on Ecocide, and I'm hoping maybe that we can get into a conversation, around microplastics, nanoplastics, and emissions, and how they're intertwined in Ecocide.
Okay. Yeah. Where did you want to start?
With microplastics, I mean, I did a little bit of research, and I found that the first microplastics that were reported in the air were in 2015, and that was in France. So we have known about these things. We've known about microplastics in water since the 70s, from what I've known. And to know that, like, people make these memes and stuff like that, like McCormick, microplastics, nanoplastics, these little gifts of shit. I try not to make it as comedic, but it's very serious because everything that we inhale right now in some form has some form of a nanoplastic. The air I'm probably breathing right now probably has some form of a nanoplastic. You know, anything from like a Teflon, like Teflon pans, if I'm not mistaken. Like if you scratch them, there's this thing called a forever, like where it's in your body forever. From what I've read, is it's a chemical that will last in your body forever because of how they've made these pans, these non-stick pans that were created in the early 2000s all the way up until now, for easy, quick, fast cooking. You know, no drip, no nothing. You don't even need no oil, type of shit.
Can-
And
Uh,
go ahead. No, go ahead. Go
but
ahead.
here's the thing with that, because me being old as dirt. I'm an old man, so I've been around through several of these. What do I call it? These moments of awareness and awakenings,
Mhm.
where microplastics back before that it was the fluoro CFCs, fluorocarbons, well, they call them CFCs. I have trouble saying chlorofluorocarbons. God damn. And prior to that, there was the talking about with the damage on the ozone layer. And I don't know if you're familiar with nuclear waste. Everybody was up in
Yep.
arms about nuclear waste and the threat of nuclear war from back. Even when I was a small child, we would have drills. And then they were these fire retardants. They would talk about they would coat children's clothing and furniture in these fire retardants, and then you had these hormone mimicking materials. And there was a book called Silent Spring that was written back in the 60s. So these environmental contaminants and societal awareness, they come and go, and then without addressing, and I was even around. I think you might have been around for the whole prion scare, mad cow disease,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
and the whole mad cow and prions are this mutant protein that isn't a disease. It isn't a living substance. It is a formation of a chain of carbon that can be ingested, and that has like a half-century gestation period. And we always talk about the specific pollutants. There was a time when everybody was aware of dioxin pollutants and mercury. Oh, mercury's everywhere. Lead. I'm a child. When I was a kid,
Lead paint.
being poor, black, in the hood, and whenever my mom would tell her pull up, and whatever hoopty she was driving at that time, and be like, get the leaded gas, because the leaded gas was like 25 cents a gallon, when the non-leaded gas might be 40 cents a gallon. That's how old I am. I remember less than $1 gas, 85 cents a gallon gas. I remember when people were like 80 cents, that's almost $1 a gallon. And I spent my whole childhood pumping leaded gas and living in the projects with leaded paint walls. And there was a lot of money laundering. So they'd come in and throw up layers of paint every couple of weeks in the hood, paint over mold, paint over holes, and paint over, the tracks that the rodents will leave. But anyway, all I'm saying is I'm not trying to diminish microplastics. They are a catastrophe.
Mhm.
And generally with these awareness, the underlying mentality, the underlying culture, and the underlying hierarchies and systems of trade and production go untouched. So some of the things like, I'm going to try to say it again. I keep doing this to chlorofluorocarbons. They can be regulated and mitigated. So sometimes the problem is regulated and mitigated. Other times the story just evaporates. It becomes just something we live with, like mad cow and the prions. They've regulated, but the prions are there. Nothing you can do. Radiation contamination. Even now, if you walk any major city, you see these fallout shelters and these radiation shelters everywhere. And now, it might be something going on with a test launch, but generally nobody thinks about nuclear proliferation. I remember they were talking about alpha particles and depleted uranium. And it's there. Depleted uranium contamination is there. You know, the Fukushima Daiichi plant, where the Japanese government got from the UN and UN regulatory bodies, international regulatory bodies, got permission to legally dump trillions of gallons of radioactive water into the Pacific Ocean. So all I'm saying is, I do think it is necessary to acknowledge these microplastics and all, and now we're going to have nanotech, microscopic nanobots. We have already loosened GMOs. And now nobody's talking. I remember when GMOs was that, oh, GMOs, what are they going to do? And there would be a GMO farm right next to a conventional farm, and there would be in the next farm over, there would be a break in the fence, and all the cattle would escape, and the farmer with the conventional farm would have his corn or his wheat consumed by the cattle, and the GMO farm would go untouched. And now that's just background. Now on the phone, I just picked up a vegan product, and it says this product contains bioengineered ingredients, and nobody even flinches anymore. So ultimately, let's say there's a nanotech or some type of new age scrubber, environmental scrubber that can absorb or degrade or reverse engineer the microplastic molecules out of the system. The problem is not necessarily microplastics is a symptom of capitalism and white hegemony. It is a symptom of the mentality, the culture, the race of people who seek to not only dominate the world, but exploit the world for short-term capitalist accumulation. It is that mentality. And the problem with it, dealing with the things that it produces, the problems or the symptoms, which, and I'm not insensitive to these, but they create these fucking catastrophes faster than we can address them.
Yeah. And as soon as we think that we have even the right amount of information on it, they're already 10 steps, 20 steps ahead of us, fucking some more shit up, you know?
When I first became a vegan and I first got active, the big issue, aside from the just the background shit, the fucking air, the oxygen of the fixed components, racism, housing, police brutality, a big issue with me was nuclear fallout. Because I always thought to myself, what the fuck is the point of inheriting a world that can't sustain life? And so I would look at the nuclear waste, nuclear contamination, radioactivity, and people were alarmed by it. But now you bring that shit up and people be like, man, and there's more now. There are more nuclear armed states now than there was back then.
Yeah, we have a
And
lot
now
of people
they have
too
conventional nukes. Yeah. They have micro nukes. They have depleted uranium. They talk about, oh, nuclear war. When North Korea launches a missile, the fucking war on terror was a nuclear war. The Saudi Arabian desert is a nuclear wasteland because it is full of alpha particles and other radioactive contaminants. They use radioactive weapons. They use radioactive weapons in that war that are still proliferating. Even this day, the Vietnam War, which was carried out and concluded before I was even born, they still have orphanages full of mutated, deformed, congenitally deformed children from the Agent Orange, from the defoliants. and people and they hide it away and move on. So microplastics is a problem, but it is a symptom. It is a byproduct.
Of the
And
main,
as
the main
we
problem.
raise awareness and try to combat and somehow recapture or contain microplastics in the environment, right now there's some motherfucker in a US government laboratory, in a Monsanto Cargill laboratory, on a military laboratory, creating something that'll make microplastics look like algae, look like something that we long for the days of microplastics. So I agree that and I have mad respect and love for the green initiatives and the environmental people. But what bothers me most is that we often don't look at not just the industries or the institutions that create this, but the fundamental culture, the worldview, the social theories, ideologies, value system that really give birth to all this shit.
Yeah.
Because that's where you have to get it, where a motherfucker could sit in a laboratory or a boardroom and conceptualize something for nothing more than short-term profit. For nothing more than a promotion, a plaque, and an extra fucking yacht.
Yep.
To upgrade his private jet, he will destroy generations of wildlife, generations of human and non-human animals, so that he can upgrade from a 10,000 square foot to a 20,000 square foot Beverly Hills mansion. That's what the world's being destroyed for. Every fucking time I'm out somewhere and I look at and I find myself from time to time around the most expensive housing, the most expensive cars, the most and I walk past, I'm in Chicago and I'm headed to the north side to get some vegan donuts, and I drive past the Miracle Mile. And I look at all these stores I've never set foot in. The Gucci store, the Louis stores with $40,000, $30,000 purses. And I'm like, this is what the world is being destroyed for. Nothing fucking more.
But consumption.
Nothing more. This is what we're losing everything for. It's not some grand vision. It's so that Elon Musk can get 5 or 6 more fucking Aryan white women to carry his wretched seed in order to save the white race. So that Zuckerberg can build some dumbass bunker
for them all to live in.
This is what the world is being destroyed for. It's not even some grand scheme. It's just so some of the most sick and unworthy people that ever lived can consume beyond anything they could ever utilize. And that is the tragedy of us all. That is the shame we should all carry. Because we could shut this shit down tomorrow.
Easy.
If the people that did, if simply the people the system does not serve adequately simply united, we wouldn't even need a violent revolution.
Like you said earlier before, how about we just all go on a vacation?
Yes.
You know, because and what's crazy is a lot of people try and use, you know, the pandemic as a example. Oh, see, when everybody was at home, you know, waters were greener or waters were clear, you know, humpback whales were you know, coming to the coast and stuff like that. And I look at it as it was business as usual during the pandemic. People were still working, trucks were still moving, ships were still being shipped out, emissions were still being we're still polluting our airs. Indigenous people were still being dispossessed of their right to their lands.
And staying the fuck home was a luxury.
Yeah, and it was you know, so 80% of the biodiversity during that time, even now, was held up by indigenous people.
There was some recovery though. I mean, I saw coyotes and deer on Roosevelt Avenue, just a few blocks from the goddamn Willis or Sears Tower.
Well, I mean, I
So
could bring up, California poppies. We've seen California poppies for on majority of the mountains in California. When I was living in Southern, because right now I reside in Las Vegas. What is that? When I was living in Southern California, like the Colton, California area and whatnot. Some of the poppies were, would come out. The mountaintops, Sierra mountain ranges, and everything. So
it
I
don't
do
take
think,
much,
yeah,
right?
some good
Yeah,
things did happen. But
but it's
that's
not it's nothing to celebrate, right?
it's yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
nothing.
even after 9/11, I was living in New York City at 9/11, and when they grounded all planes, all
Mhm.
air traffic in the United States and most of the world, and the particulate matter, the particulates, the toxic particulates, reduced by like 60% within 48 hours of grounding all planes.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, that is a small sign,
Yeah.
not completely insignificant, but too small to dance. It ain't nothing to dance in the street, but it is a sign that the planet has the capacity to recover if we
Yeah,
stop the harm.
if we stop doing what we're doing, if we stop fracking, if we start utilizing what
If
hemp.
them
They,
are
I
as
got in
what?
trouble.
Wait, say,
I
don't
got
say our. What did Malcolm X say? Don't say our government, say the
there,
government.
the
Don't
government.
say
If
our
the
military,
if
say the military. If
I got in trouble.
listen, we got a weapon is a language, and language is a weapon. So yeah,
If they
I
stop
ain't done none of
fracking.
that shit. They didn't consult me or my ancestors on none of this motherfucking bullshit. And a few of my people who did participate were traitors. They didn't do so with my sanction.
Yeah. If they would stop fracking, if they would stop air all these air routes and stuff like that, if they would listen to indigenous people and how they lived in reciprocity with the earth
You got to be
before.
careful with that, because then they go handpick an indigenous person. You
Secretary
act
of
like it
State,
ain't no ain't no
Secretary of
Uncle
Interior.
Tomahawks. We got Uncle Toms and Uncle Tomahawks. Don't play like that, because I've met some Cherokee fucking racist ass pro-Western, think they were the fucking cowboys.
Well, yeah, I mean
Since
that
day one, the Europeans have had native collaborators.
I just seen Grand
So
Canyon
you have to say
University.
native revolutionaries, native liberationists, or indigenous communists. You can't just say, oh, listen to women, listen to minorities, listen to indigenous people. Nah, be fucking careful. They run that trick too. Oh yes, we have 3 indigenous people on our council, and they're like, drill baby drill, and then they go in the back behind the curtain and get a grip. So
I was supposed
we
to
gotta
actually
be
have
more
a I
specific.
was supposed to have an episode on indigenous capitalism, because that there is a wide range. I talked about the San Manuel casino that's now Yamava. They
Yes,
have sponsorship with the Dodgers. They own large plotages of land, and all the while their reservation sits right on top of the San Andreas fault line,
yes,
directly on top. And I
yes.
find it funny that
Yeah.
most indigenous communities that have either quote unquote reclaimed their land back or reclaimed some form of land, it has always been stewarded or given to by the system, and then put them in a place where, say, a natural disaster could happen, a flood. They're now in a food desert, or they're on a or they're on a
That's all I'm
or they're on
saying.
a
So
farm,
just be
you know.
careful. They got us. They
Yeah, no.
listen. Back in the civil rights era, they be like, put a colored man up there. They put a colored man on in the 50s and say, put a colored man up there. Oh,
They're
and then
staying
in the
right
70s, women's
now.
rights, women's liberation, put a woman in charge, a girl boss. No. And now they like put a trans or put a gay up there. And then we got people like Lil Nas X said, I used to hate capitalism until I became a millionaire. Now I love capitalism. So we got a
You
lot
love
of
you love the
let
exploitation
me
that
tell
that,
you.
that comes with that.
I'm just trying to iron sharpens irons. I'm just
All
trying
right,
to, I know what you
you
mean. I know what you mean. But you got to say what you mean now. You can't just assume people,
I
because
can't
people
assume no
take your
more.
shit and
No.
run with it. Especially, you online now. People are dissecting and will dilute your shit and run with it. So
Shoot. And
it ain't enough to be indigenous. You got to be radical, revolutionary, nonconformist. We've been under
and
this system for too
there's a
long. A
lot that
lot
I
of our
hold
people.
back.
I'm
There's a
just
lot
saying.
that no,
But you
there's a
just
lot
add
that
1 or 2 words.
just one or two
1 or 2
words in
words.
there.
Yeah, listen to indigenous people. No, listen to radicalized, non-westernized, non-Christianized indigenous
You
people.
you just brung that up. I seen a commercial for Grand Canyon University, which is a Christian university,
Mhm.
and they had an indigenous woman on there, young girl. She's like, I picked this college, it was the right for me. And then right as the thing ends, and this is an indigenous person too, as soon as the commercial ends, it plays private Christian,
Yeah,
like their morals and values and shit. And
right.
I'm like, how does that even coincide with you being indigenous? And then I see her parents, and they're all Mexico, puro fucking, Mexico fucking bullshit,
Conquistadors,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's like wearing cowboy hats and shit, it like with big old belt brass buckle, it's like I find
Confederates
it
and
funny.
conquistadors.
Yeah, I find it funny, and I do at times I hold back a lot of what I would really like to say, because I feel like um maybe there's a different way to come about it, like
Oh yeah,
I
I
just
learned that. You just got to say whom I respect. You just got to lie and say you
whom I,
respect the people before you tear them down.
I heard that on EYL, and I
Yeah,
swear I
yeah, that's
started
right. I've
laughing.
learned it. Yeah, I'm getting so much
All you
love
got
now. I'm going mainstream. So just before
Oh,
you
snap.
tear into a motherfucker, just say, "But I respect the brother." But
But
yeah, just people hear the word respect and their defenses come down.
oh shoot. I might laugh out my sickness in this episode. I don't know. I've been coughing.
Let me back away from the screen. Shoot. I'm just now getting back on my feet. I can't play
we
around.
got about 25 minutes, or about 24 minutes left.
Yeah, when we gonna start the
An
topic?
hour and a half. The topic of Omnicide. Let's get into Omnicide. I'm hoping I have some time at the end to ask you some questions about comics, because I didn't I just barely I don't know why this is something that just came about to me. But you've been talking about comics like for years, like on your
Yeah.
podcast or on your platform, not your podcast, but your platform. And so I do have some questions on comics and stuff like that, but we can get into that after Omnicide. I heard you say Omnicide for the first time in Vital Hoops podcast episode that you did with Fernando Cardenas. Shout out to them. They're a comrade of mine, I'm pretty sure of Diallo's. They've been on my podcast. I'm hoping I can get on theirs as well, and they're going to be back on to mine. So kind of, sharing the love and whatnot. So if you could go follow Vital Hoops podcast, go and follow Fernando Cardenas. They do a lot of great work for the culture is what he calls it. But yeah, I in that episode that you did, I believe it was part 2. You talked about Omnicide, like we need to even refrain from it's now, instead of Ecocide, it's now more Omnicide. And so if you could kind of give a brief definition to Omnicide, and then also how that is kind of what we've kind of been talking about this whole entire time, in essence, just in little spurts and spits and shit. So
Well, well, of course, ecocide is the destruction of ecosystems. And genocide is the killing of groups in part as whole. But omnicide is the destruction of the capacity to sustain life, complex life forms. So it's not just enough to cut down the rainforest or to, melt the polar ice caps, or to engage in genocide in the Horn of Africa, the Sudan, or Palestine. What omnicide is the fundamental, is a convergence of all these catastrophes. Because in the past, many catastrophes were isolated. You might have a famine in one part of the world. You might have a spill, a oil tanker spill in another part of the world. In the Midwest, you might have a drought or dust bowl. And now there is a convergence and confluence. Just as money moves across the world without borders, just as capitalism is global, Omnicide is the confluence of all of these various political, military, ideological, fascist, theocratic, or theological, Western, white ideologies, values, and agendas, and their ultimate destruction of all complex systems, ecological systems, and all complex life forms. It is the destruction of the capacity of the earth to sustain complex systems, natural systems, and life forms. That's omnicide. The death of everything, the collapse of everything. It is tied to what is called positive feedback loops. A positive feedback loop is you actively engage in contamination and destruction, that to a point where even if you cease or withdraw that action, the negative effects will perpetuate, such as methane vents. So you have human capitalist activity. Let me not say human. See, I'm making a mistake. I'm calling you out for capitalist Western economic activities that emits carbon, that creates a greenhouse effect, that leads to global warming, that starts to melt the polar ice caps and the permafrost of the tundra. Within the permafrost of the tundra, and it also heats the lakes. Hot water or heated water has less of a capacity to hold carbon. So when the ocean used to be a carbon sink, a place that would attract and fix and hold carbon, now it starts to emit carbon. The Arctic tundra, the frozen tundra, permafrost, used to hold billions and billions of tons of tundra. And the other fossil fuels that were under the permafrost were much too isolated and expensive to extract. But now places that used to hold on to or captured carbon are now emitting carbon. And so now you have these carbon that used to be a carbon sink, now these methane sinks of all of this millions and millions of years of vegetation and animal and biomass that was frozen begins to melt and begins to decay and begins to emit methane, which is several magnitudes more destructive and more powerful greenhouse gas than carbon. So that is a positive feedback loop. That is a positive feedback loop. Things like nuclear radiation and contamination. You release that into the environment, and let's say we shut down all nuclear weapons programs, all nuclear power plants. Still, for the next million years, those cores will be contaminated and radioactive. You can't bury it. You can't, well, I guess theoretically, maybe you could, but you create more problems than you solve. Shoot it into space. No, there's some people that are proposing. So anyway, Omnicide is not just killing something, but destroying that thing's very capacity to exist. I don't know if that's clear.
No, it is. Yeah, but
there's one thing to kill a person. There's another thing to destroy the land, the water, the air necessary for their existence. So not only do you kill an individual or a people, you destroy their capacity to exist. That's omnicide. That's what's really happening
right now.
But again, we will look at isolated components when they're all connected. The genocide in Israel, or the genocide in Palestine, or as Steve Coakley said, is it real?
Is it real?
The erection of Cop City against the will of the people in a so-called the greatest democracy in the world. The rise and prominence of the right wing being funded by even liberal elites and multinational corporations that fund them economically, that give them preference in the algorithm because fascism is capitalism's immune system. All of this shit is intertwined and tied together. And many people who work on various facets of the systems and institutions of capitalism and white hegemony, the people that work on housing versus the people that work on queer and gay rights, and the people that work on environmental issues, anti-cop issues, Palestine issues, the Congo, we end up fighting each other. Black people get mad at direct action because people will say, well, we got to stop the cattle trains. We got to shut down the broiler houses for the chicken. We got to stop this exploitation of, oh, I hate PETA. I hate these animal rights people. They care more about animals than humans. So they got us. We all fighting the same enemy.
Mhm.
And we put more energy into conflicting over each other and thinking that our movements are either divergence or in conflict with each other, when they really are all the same fucking fight. Because when you get to the core of the issue and you stop addressing the symptoms,
You understand that it's white hegemony.
and capitalism,
Yeah.
unjust hierarchies, and you even have people that claim they're Pan-African, who claim they're for liberation, and they'll sit there and be like, I don't give a fuck about Palestine. I don't give a fuck about the animals. What the fuck? I don't give a fuck about the rainforest.
And they must
I
not
live
have
in
read
Detroit.
Kwame Nkrumah then.
And people don't understand it's all the same enemy.
Yeah.
And not only that, you have oppressed people, which has been going on from day one, to say, hey, I'll enlist in the military. Or give me reparations so I can buy stock in Halliburton. So I can be a landlord. I can buy houses. Like, we all gonna be landlords. Who gonna be the fucking renter? We all gonna be entrepreneurs. Who gonna be the employee? We all gonna be wealthy. So a billionaire, you clean my house on even days. You're gonna be my maid on the even days and the odd days. We all on the verge. So
people who make $100,000 or less will be the housekeepers billionaires. That's how their mindset works. Like, these individuals think that
well, to
that
quote the
gaining-
coup again, E-Rock from the coup, he said, if everybody in the hood had a PhD, you say that doctor flipped that burger hella good for me. And he said that back in 91. And now you do have PhDs driving Uber and doing DoorDash
delivering
to pay off there.
burgers.
So he said that decades ago. So it'll be the same thing. You know, my lawn keeper has $1 million in Bitcoin. You know, is a millionaire on the internet.
It's bullshit.
My housekeeper has $5 million in NFTs. So yeah, that is going to be the situation we find ourselves in, because
Shoot.
you know, all this fake wealth versus owning and controlling the means of production.
No, I think, for one, thank you for explaining, what Omnicide is, and how you said it just doesn't affect a human. It affects everything that we would need in order for us to sustain our livelihood, or even create an environment, or try to let me see, I'm losing my train of thought. Like, try to reverse some of these effects that are happening right now.
Well,
So
that's the
again,
ultimate outcome of the system. And what you have to understand about Omnicide, if we ended racism tomorrow, if every black person in the United States got reparations, every black person's student debt was forgiven, if every black person was given a $500,000 business loan and free access to and everything every black reactionary organization asked for, we would still be obligated to engage in revolution to subvert and utterly dismantle these systems and institutions of white hegemony. Because this system is not just racist, it's not just colonial, it is destroying this system, this culture, this mentality, the theories, ideologies that root this system and drive this system and justify and legitimize this system are destroying the life-sustaining capacity of the earth. And the only long-term solutions they offer is to make enough money to build a bunker or make enough money to build a rocket to nowhere.
Yep.
Because Mars cannot be colonized within enough time. Neither can the moon, and neither can the International Space Station. Because like you said, they're destroying the Earth in less than 100 years, and humanity, even if you accelerate or quadruple its technological process, is at least 2,000 to 5,000 years away from any type of practical interplanetary colonization.
Yeah. And, people always want to bring up, this, and it's fiction. Now we're getting into kind of, I seen the movie Aquaman, where they use fossil fuels as like a melting of the Arctic, and it was kind of like we need to stop this bad guy because he's going to release methane into the air, this gas and whatnot. So I thought it was very, very compelling for them to use this as like a look, we need to care now, when big businesses like Warner Brothers, Disney, Amazon, UPS, Walmart, FedEx, Costco, any co that's out there, Winco, Costco, Fedco, Fred Meyer, all these places, they are aiding and abetting the emissions that are being put out there, and they think because we're gonna create these driveless robot trucks, that this will solve everything because there's no emissions that are there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Windmills and windmills and electric cars, and it pains me to say, but it's true. Vegan diet will not save this planet.
Yeah. Now, what are your thoughts on hemp? Like hemp is something that is on because I'll go to my grave saying this. There is over 25,000 things that could be made out of hemp that we use today that could easily help. And maybe this is where we may differ.
Here's the thing with hemp though. Hemp ain't gonna save us. Hemp is great. Soy is great. The soybean is a wonderful plant that's been cultivated for thousands of years. And what the fuck did they do to soy? They turned it into a commodity.
Yeah, well, I mean that was CBD with
they
hemp
genetically
too,
modified it. They patented. They created Terminator seeds. So what would make hemp exempt from the same abuses that every other good and wonderful natural commodity has gone through?
So would it be safe to say that we cannot address
hemp under capitalism is no different than cotton under capitalism. Okay. Hemp under capitalism will play out no differently than cotton played out under capitalism, or any other wonderful commodity that was cultivated, developed, and cherished by non-colonial, non-predatory races of people all over the earth.
Okay.
So I'm not anti-hemp. I'm not anti-hemp, but I don't know. But here, and can I tell you something else? Here's another trick, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to universal, widespread oppression, we always understand oppression in terms of it imposing its problems, imposing hardships, imposing suffering. So we understand one part of oppression is imposing hardship, but another part of oppression that we miss out on is oppression also dictates solutions. And I meet so many people that are very aware of the problems of oppression imposing problems, but we miss the ball on dictating solutions. So a lot of our solutions wind up being us playing the game and playing within the limitations and scope of oppression. So when someone is able to dictate and impose the problem and dictate and impose and profit from the solution, where are you? Where do you end up? So I have no problem with hemp cultivation, hemp advocacy, hemp development, hemp research, hemp products and manufacturing. But again, hemp has to be mobilized to subvert and destroy the systems and institutions of global white hegemony. I see a lot of people in hemp where they talk about the investment. They want to take hemp to the Caribbean and take it to Africa as a cash crop, and so that those nations can develop and become partners or competitors with this system, within the system. So we can't really rest on anything that leaves the status quo intact. The status quo must be subverted and upended. That's the ultimate goal. So that's how everything needs to be understood and engaged, based on how will it lead us to subverting the status quo. Not enduring, not simply, but I know enduring, surviving, and even thriving within the status quo. I understand it. And I will never undermine, as Nellie Fuller said, your main obligation in life, as an oppressed person, your only obligation in life is not to compound the oppression of another oppressed person. Other than that, you can do whatever the fuck you want, up to and including what he's saying, taking the lives of the oppressors, robbing their banks, burning their. You can do anything, but the only obligation you have as an oppressed person is not to compound someone else's oppression. So I'm not tearing anything down, but as we just have this opportunity to really speak about the core of the issue, as opposed to the symptoms and in surface analysis.
Yeah, no, I understand. My thing was, maybe this from this episode, I learned a lot from you, because I didn't really understand. I didn't know that people were trying to take this to other countries to make that, to develop that. I never dug too deep into it. I dug into like, well, what are some things that could be made out of hemp, not just under this system, but under a new system.
Everything from renewable fuels. There's a lot of great things to come from hemp, and it's a lot better. And even the banning and criminalization of hemp and cannabis is a byproduct of racism and capitalist institutions, fossil fuel, and racist plantation agriculture. So yes, I mean, some of the founding rapists, the founding pedophiles, the founding fathers, some of the founding fathers were hemp farmers. So yeah, I'm well aware of hemp, but yes, I'm not against any of this. If somebody wants to engage the hemp market, but you have to say, well, what is the ultimate goal? What is the ultimate outcome?
Yeah, and now that you bring that to my attention, about these individuals that want to commodify it and take it to other countries and shit. I'm gonna have to do my own research on that.
And there's nothing that won't be. I remember it whether it's hemp or hip hop, the motherfuckers are going to try to commodify it. So even if you engage in a small or large scale in the hemp industry, how do you put up barriers to the commodification and infiltration and manipulation by the oppressors? Everything has to be not only a weapon against the oppressors, it needs to be secured and fortified against the oppressors. Because everything they engage with, if they came up with a cure for cancer tomorrow, their first thought, well, how do we make it profitable? How do we monetize it? So anything we as the oppressed people come up with, how do we revolutionize it? How do we radicalize it? How do we weaponize it against our oppressors? Whether it is a music genre or a natural resource, whether it's an individual or an organization, that should be a primary and central question. How do we use it to reduce oppression and advance resistance? Hemp has that potential. Hemp has that potential. But it won't happen by accident. It has to be deliberate and organized. That's why ideology is so important. It frustrates me. So many people like, I ain't with all this talking. They don't want to do revolution is an intellectual endeavor. And these silly people are like, I ain't right or left. They will not understand or accept the importance of ideology That's everything. That is the root. If your ideology isn't sound, if it isn't radical or revolutionary, if your analysis, if your critique, if your worldview and social theory is not locked in, all the resources and opportunity in the world can be laid out before you. And you end up worse off than you were before you got the good shit. I tell everybody, these motherfuckers study everything. I was just listening to the NPR on the way back from my son's house. And they were talking about research into happiness and the fundamental components of happiness. And they're not researching happiness just because they're curious.
Trying to commodify.
They ultimately, they were trying to say, well, the tourism industry, the gaming industry wants to tap into not just our psychological, but the biochemistry of happiness.
I was watching Ocean's 13 earlier. They had this machine. I don't know if you ever watched it. There's this machine where it catches all your emotions and your eye gestures, and it wants to the AI itself will depict what you're thinking, what you're feeling, your next thought process. And
but we have people who want to resist this, who think they can resist it without any ideology, any analysis, without discourse, debate, without being left or right. I ain't into none of that. Without understanding the complex and divergent ideologies. Fascism, they all fascists, they all racist, they all this and that. Anti-academic, ahistorical, anti-intellectual, anti-academic. That is the symptoms of menticide. And it's ideology that's going to liberate us. It's ideology that is going to direct the behaviors. And it is the behaviors that must be directed towards resistance. We got people, and that's why I get into people like, you got to respect so-and-so. Oh, you can't criticize this person and that person. Stop. And airing dirty laundry. And you tearing down other people who want to do good. The ideological and intellectual work is the foundation.
There's some on here I haven't been able to use in a minute, and it's right for it though. So I'm gonna go ahead and do it.
Read a motherfucking book. Read a book. Read a book. Read a motherfucking book. Read a book. Read a book. Read a motherfucking book. Read a book. Read a book. Read a motherfucking book.
Read a book, please. For anybody that's out there, and that's very, very serious, because there's a lot of people that are out there that'll go, and I actually seen, I think it was episode 50 or 49, where you guys had JD on, for JG Sillinger, I think it is. FD Sillinger, sorry.
I think JD would be better. I want to talk to him, JD.
And he's somebody who I watch as well. And there's something that he made very, very clear, and I really do respect, is that there's a lot of people that'll take what is said either here, what is said, on the internet, and go and run with it and create their own, create their own narrative, or take what someone said and think that that's the end, that's all that there is. So that's why I always tell people, I mean, I even to my viewers, if you guys want books from me to read, let me know, put it down in the comments. I'll let you know. What I'm reading right now currently is Kwame Ture's. I'm actually reading this.
Ready for Revolution.
Right now. Yeah, Ready for Revolution. And I just tapped back into Wretched of the Earth, because I seen that Jared Ball was talking about sports, football and whatnot. So I tapped into some Fanon again. But to any of the viewers that are out there, like, I don't take what I say as the end all be all. Like I've said on numerous occasions, there's people out there that are probably more articulate than me that could express and explain what I'm feeling. This is just a platform for me to get everything that I feel is important out there, and in hopes that you guys will take what I have and create your own interpretations and not just follow what I say. So, and that even goes like for me, how I digest a lot of Bro Diallo, Rational Radicals. There's a lot of stuff that I take from there, but I don't, take and then become a sciolist. And I like to I want my own opinion on things, just like everybody should. So that
Right.
I do think reading a book is very,
It's not
very,
enough to consume. You have to digest.
you have to digest. So
You have to
to cut
digest, process, and evacuate.
to evacuate.
So yeah,
This does not mean a
consuming is
vacation.
just step one. Right. Consuming is just the first step. If you just consume and you don't digest, then you become impacted,
Yeah, and
stagnant.
and constructive criticism too, I feel plays a large role in gaining a lot of understanding. Is it, you might come to some understanding, but then there might be somebody with an antithesis to what you're saying,
And
and
destructive criticism
and
too.
destructive criticism as well.
Shit.
Which
Some shit needs to
I
be.
try and
What was
stay
that
away from.
before you go? What was that book website?
Libgen.is. Yeah, so
Okay. I just want to make
you
sure
know,
I got that
I need to be
unlocked.
quiet because Geechee might he
Geechee play
might
around. Geechee, he
you
uses
you
his
guys are my
powers for evil.
you guys are my favorite out of everybody from BPM. Earn Your Liberation has to be my favorite show to watch. And there's one
Oh,
thing
thank you.
I will say. Um, I'd love to see an Afro-Indigenous person on there. Someone who can kind of speak to both sides, and I'm not talking about myself at all.
So we see
There's
when Brother Polite get out on parole, I believe
um,
he's a black. I think.
but there's one person that I'd like for hoping I can request to you, that in hopes that it could happen. If it doesn't, it's all good. Dr. Kyle T. Mays created this book back in 2019, an Afro-Indigenous history of the United States. And so he's an assistant professor. It's not I don't think he has a doctorate yet. He's an assistant professor at UCLA for Africana Studies, and I'd love to see him on Earn Your Liberation, because I feel like he brings a very, very it's something different, to for you guys, I guess I should say. It's something really different. He's a really cool dude. I'm hoping I can have him on this year, depending on what his schedule is like and whatnot. But yeah, Kyle T. Mays is someone who I'd love to see on Black Power Media, because he gets into, and he's a hip hop fanatic as well and whatnot. And he does have a book where he talks about hip hop and African culture and indigenous culture and whatnot. He's let me see, I think he's Chippewa. Let's see right here.
Saginaw Chippewa.
Saginaw. I think that's what he's half Saginaw Chippewa. And he's obviously from the African diaspora. And he just brings a really good insight into kind of like the collectiveness, the solidarity amongst indigenous people during the 70s, 80s, 60s, all the way up until now. He even also breaks.
Does he talk about the native slave owners? I got to get that book. I'll just mark it.
Yeah, no, he does. He talks about them in this book. I actually have it. I think I have it highlighted.
Yeah, we have to, cause
yeah, I think I'll if I find the highlighted section, I'll screenshot it, or I'll take a picture of it and I'll send it to you through the direct messages. But to end this off, I wanted to ask you some questions about comics. Okay.
All right.
I know that we currently right now, and mainly if we could kind of I'm a Marvel guy. I've been a Marvel guy my whole life. My favorite Marvel character of all time is Beast. I'm sorry, but it's Beast. That is my favorite
They
character.
keep messing with Beast, man.
I like that
with the Age of Apocalypse Beast.
That was disgusting.
He was hardcore. What? Beast was kind of lame up to
No, I'm talking about Apocalypse was disgusting. That didn't even look like Oscar Isaacs looked nothing like Apocalypse whatsoever.
I'm talking about Age of Apocalypse Beast.
Oh,
what did they call him? The Dark Beast? of course, the African American beast.
Let me see right here.
You don't remember that beast? That's probably before your time. See, I'm
It
gonna be
is
talking
probably
about golden age.
my beast. My beast is the 97 X-Men. That's my beast.
Well, they during the Age of Apocalypse, they had a beast there who was a villain, but he managed to come through the rift created by Legion into the Earth, the main timeline. But anyway, he was hardcore.
Yeah, but the questions that I had are regarding, you know, comics, whereas like we have a lot of individuals right now that are creating these either pro, you know, African characters, you know, or these indigenous characters like Cohorty, who is a Mohawk.
What? We already had Apache. What's his name?
With Thunderbird, we had Thunderbird, if I think is what you're.
Apache from the Super Friends.
Who was on the X-Men though? Was it that Thunderbird who was the Native American?
Oh yeah, they had two brothers. Yeah, what the original Thunderbird got killed. Then they had Moonstar, the girl.
Yep.
Yeah.
But now they have this MCU, you know, recreated character called, you know, Cohorty. And I have a problem with it, and mainly because, you know, I feel like, you know, they only want to commodify indigenous culture, you know, when it's beneficial to them, you know. But my main question is, you know, do you see comic books being something that, you know, individuals can utilize as kind of like a step away?
You know what was funny about Cohori? How they had the Spaniards genociding her people.
It pissed me off that we were only able to get them conquistadors back unless we were all dead. Basically, is what it came out to be.
But not only that, but here's another rub. Then she goes and allies with the British.
Right. Captain Carter.
Right. Captain Carter. So and they didn't call her Captain Britain. You notice you got Captain America, but you can't have a Captain Britain. So you go and fight the Spaniards, but you ally with the British. But anyway, they play around. They playing games.
I was mad.
Anyway,
I was mad.
The first season of What If was much better, but the comics
I think so. Yeah,
better. I was a big fan of the What If Elseworlds and What If comics back in the day. So,
no,
but let's get back to your question. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. No, I was gonna say, so there are What If comics, because I'm new to this now. Like you're bringing this to my attention now. I knew that What If. I thought What If was just a show that they created, which is why like they haven't brought up any X-Men and stuff
going
like
back
that.
I've been reading What If comics since like the 80s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because you know they had put out that they weren't going to be doing any X-Men in any mutants in the What If until mutants were brung into the MCU.
Yeah, that's yeah. But you said the comics. You didn't say the
I did.
You said the comics, and then you go to the TV shows and the movies.
I'm rambling. I'm sick, man.
Right? There's
I'm
no
sick,
problem.
man.
It's all gravy. I can get down with it all. You know.
No, but to kind of end it here, you know, what are your thoughts on current comics right now, and you know how have they changed over time from when you were a child, you know, all the way up until you're now, how they've changed.
Well, it's kind of funny because comics when I was young, were considered counterculture. You know. When I was a kid growing up in the 80s, nerd and geek culture was not mainstream or popular. You know, a nerd was not a girl who, you know, would take off her glasses and swoosh her hair and all of a sudden she's a sexy girl. Nerds were genuinely people with bad hygiene and socially awkward cats. And so to be called a nerd was not a compliment. And in terms of nerd culture, there was no nerd culture. Nerd was a diss or a slur. So, you know, I grew up and I was deeply into fantasy, you know, as I, you know, think back, you know, especially for me, it was a great escape from my environment. So growing up poor in the projects and having this world to escape to, I was into action figures, GI Joe, He-Man. I was into comic books. I was into the choose your own adventure novel with the wizard and the knight, and it was a great escape. But it also, but back to what you're saying, because
I'm a big GI Joe fan too.
yeah.
I don't know if you can
No,
see.
I mean the small figures. They used to shout out to Rip the Crip. We used to go to Sears Surplus and wipe them out. We used to wipe them out. You know, I think the statute of limitations are over, so now I can flex. But yeah, we used to go steal GI Joe from Sears Surplus. But anyway, so back then, because comics were considered counterculture, they weren't considered part of the high culture or mainstream media as they were now. They've always been able to deal with subjects. You know, there's always like, you know, storm. And a lot of times the people who are anti-woke, the anti-woke fascists and reactionary, oh, Marvel's going woke. It's because they only know the modern Disney Marvel. But pre-Disney, pre-mega blockbuster movie, pre-streaming, Marvel was always quote unquote woke. It always, sometimes it would fail, sometimes it would succeed, but they always had a smattering. Sometimes they did it well, sometimes they did it poorly, of minority characters. I think even more so than DC, to be honest. But there were always several characters. Sometimes they represent the character well or poorly. They always talked about where, you know, Marvel was a stand-in where mutants would represent a oppressed minority who were trying to find their way in the world, and some mutants wanted to rebel against the system, while other mutants wanted to try to demonstrate their worthiness and their capacity to integrate into society. So that was always there. The more progressive, or what people will call woke or liberal, way back when, if you remember, Storm became the leader of the X-Men. And then she later became leader of the Morlocks. If they did that same comic, that they ran that same, the Morlocks theory today, the sewer dwelling mutants, and the conflict, and even the X-Men had to understand not every mutant is a six-pack, spandex, sexy, but there are many mutants who had deformities that wouldn't allow them to function in society. And even the X-Men had to be schooled that they were fighting for mutants. They were fighting for the human passing. If that same story, which was around in the 80s, came out right now, they'd be like, oh, woke, you know, Marvel's going woke, Disney woke, when that shit was happening in the 80s during the Reagan administration. So comics have always attempted to deal with this and had always had these themes. I think it dealt better with them when they weren't a mainstream medium and they weren't a mainstream or multinational corporate. I mean, many of the years I read Marvels, back when I used to buy comics off the stand, you know, back when comic books were 35 cents, and you can buy them. There'd be a little rickety rack in the back of the 7-Eleven or convenience store, and you go and pick your rack off, and Marvel would miss publishing dates, and you know, it was a struggle for many years. So Marvel had always, or comics, I think now it's for shit. Like every time now and then I might go look at a graphic novel or go look into the lore. I don't buy and collect them like I used to. I used to have just tons and crates and crates. My uncle took a bunch, and I collected mostly Marvel. When they came out with the Milestone line, started with hardware, I had all that shit. And so I was reading that, the Big Bang and Blood Syndicate and Static Shock, before Static Shock became an action figure and a cartoon character. And so, and it dealt with racism, housing issues. I think the Milestone line, they had a gay character way back before the mainstreaming of the LGBTQAI. It was after, and this is during the height of the AIDS crisis and things like that. And they had heroes that were afflicted with AIDS, and there was another virus that only affected mutants. So comics were a way to show white folks themselves, where white folks And it's so funny. Like white people will look at Star Wars, pro-military, pro-police. White people will look at Star Wars and see themselves as Han Solo and see themselves as Luke Skywalker. And you never meet a racist who identifies with the Emperor. You know, they can look at Indiana Jones and think that literally neo-Nazis watch Indiana Jones movies and be like, yeah, I'm the swashbuckler. And it always was curious to me. Even when I was young, white folks would read these comics and deal with these issues. And they would literally be like, don't bring politics into the comics.
They've been there.
The storylines were almost verbatim replicas of historical events. You know, they were almost verbatim historical events. So yeah, before the shit went mainstream and before it got consolidated and before it became a multi-billion-dollar industry, you know, and I think, you know, like with Seth MacFarlane becoming rich, I mean, artists were many, you know, the story, like the creator of Batman and Superman, they died poor. Comic book artists, like if you come home and tell your child, I'm gonna, or your parents, I want to be a comic book artist, they'd be like, oh my God, you're gonna be living in my basement forever. These people were accessible. Right. And now these people are multimillionaires and moguls and shit. So I don't know. I think it used to. I think those days are gone, and I don't think they'll ever come back where comic books could take risk more so than either effectively or ineffectively or sincere or insincere attempt to deal with social issues through the comics. Now it's all about pandering. Yeah, they even turned Beast. Remember, Beast was gay for some time.
Yeah.
You know, and it was dealt with so sloppily, and then they went back on it.
And then you have what was Wiccan?
And remember the burqa wearing mutant named Sand. She was an Arab mutant named Sand, and her superpower was she would turn into sand and manipulate sand. Like that kind of shit that's happening in modern comics. Or like you said, Kahori, you know, I fight the British I fight with the British, you know, and I unite with the British colonizers. You know, so yeah, it's corporate now. So maybe I was too young and naive to see it as pandering back then, but it just really, they could take risks because nobody was paying attention and the stakes weren't that high and the financial stakes. Whereas now, the shit is shitty as hell. Even Justice League used to have some really good writing, you know, where they would deal with issues of national sovereignty, whether or not heroes are able to exercise their heroics and cross borders. And Wonder Woman was a fascist and violating national sovereignty when she felt she could, and the other Superman or Batman and the espionage and even when they started dealing with terrorism. So and when I see the movies try to adapt the comic book storylines that had higher levels of complexity, the movies always fuck it up. Like my wife has finally, it took her about 5-6 years to get me to shut up and just watch the movie instead of pointing out all the inaccuracies or inconsistencies or absurdities with the comic. But I think it's doomed. I think the shit it's for shit now, like hip hop. You know, anything that goes multinational, right? Anything that goes, you know, capitalism takes credit for shit, but all capitalism does is commodify and fuck shit up.
Yep.
You know,
shoot.
And then all the little local comic shops is gone. Shout out to Clint's Comics. You know, that used to be my spot, and then I used to get my comics on 7th Avenue. I don't even know the name of that shit back in the 90s and 80s, but yeah, modern comics. I can't even read that shit. And maybe because I'm an old curmudgeon now, so I get it, finally my beard turned gray, so I have to say modern shit ain't as good as old shit.
Pan-Africanism. The Grinch of Pan-Africanism.
But my problem is not necessarily the updated or modernism of it. It's how it is a multi-billion-dollar industry as opposed to a niche product when I was consuming it. Same thing with hip hop.
Yeah, and I completely agree. Like growing up as a kid, my dad had some comic books that he had saved and whatnot. I didn't really get too deep into comic books. It more or less was, you know, I didn't get into them really probably until like about 2 or 3 years ago when I could potentially, like when I was able to afford it myself and whatnot to go out. There's this place in City of Industry. It's a toy shop for adults, bro. Like you go in, you can buy stuff from Funko Pops to old comic books. There's actually my brother's house. He has I bought all the Eternals comic books, and I made sure that they were the ones that I like. There was about 20 or 30 of them that I have. And he has them for me. They're all in their plastic wraps. So those are the only really comics that I have. The ones that my dad had, he gave them to somebody else, or yeah, no, I'm not gonna say somebody else, to a brother that I don't speak to no more. Let me just be fucking real. But yeah, my love for just comics and superheroes in general is just kind of like an escape from the real world. I'll go and I'll put on like some X-Men or something, talking about like the cartoons and shit like that. I'll put on some of the old Justice League, which I think is arguably arguably the best cartoon of all time.
Shout out to McDuffie. Oh yes, it's a masterpiece.
I don't know any other I mean, Young Justice maybe second to that.
That's too much. That's too heavy.
I mean, Young
That's
Justice
exhausting.
is pretty.
Young
Justice
is
is some good shit. It is a good
But the
show.
Justice League, I got them on DVD, and Justice League Unlimited, masterpiece.
Yep.
But it's a difference. See, back in the day, this used to be a real beef. The consumers versus the collectors.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a consumer. I'm not a collector. Meaning I would buy the book to read the book, and I would go back and read the book over and over. I wouldn't buy the book and put it in an airtight, air-sealed cellophane.
Look at you making fun of my ass right now.
When I bought an action figure, I opened that motherfucker up and pose it and play with pew pew. So I never was a collector. I was a consumer. And I used to pass my comic books, and and I remember when the speculators and investors would come, and then Marvel started reissuing, and then every few weeks they come out with X-Men Volume 1 or X-Men 1 Issue 0. Like, the fuck is this? I was on issue 275, and I go buy the same damn comic book, and it's issue 1. And then there's a bunch of people in there with the pre-orders and shit, or buying 5 copies of the same goddamn thing to try to resell it. And so the speculators also, even before the multinationals got in on that shit, the speculators fucked that shit up. And they commodified it. When we used to come in, and I remember I tell my homeboy, listen, I buy the mutant titles, you buy the hero titles. And I read that, and then we flip and switch and trade off. And then I had a friend, man, this is the biggest fucking tragedy. This is what caused me to go atheist. Me and my homie used to buy comic books. So he had his list of titles and I had my list of titles. And so we would get the titles, and after the weekend, the comics would come out on Tuesday. And so by that Monday, we switch off and trade off. And this is during the Inferno series, right?
Okay.
And I don't know if you're familiar with Inferno. You probably weren't born when that Inferno series came up with Magic and and what's her name? The clone of Jean Grey,
the Phoenix.
Whatever. I don't know, because my shit got fucked up. I can't remember it right. But let me tell you what happened. And so me and my homie were trading off. I was buying the mutant titles, he buys. So I gave him all my Inferno stack of all the shit I collected on Inferno. And I read through that shit. I'm like, yeah, it's a good storyline. Let me know what you think. And then he gave me a bunch of fucking Thor and couple of Heathcliff comics. So I'm at home reading. So like a week later, I go to my man. His name's Robert. We called him Bob. And I'm like, yeah, where my Inferno shit at? And he's like, my dad threw him away. He's like, I was reading it, and my dad opened the book, and his father was their whole family was Jehovah's idiots. Jehovah's wickedness. And he read and saw Inferno and Mephisto and demonic forces. And so the mutants were fighting the denizens of the demonic, and he threw all my shit in the garbage. And I'm like, why you letting him throw away my shit? He's like, well, I told my dad it was yours. And he said, no child should be reading this. So he threw away all my shit and then forbid his son to buy more. And so I got to keep the comics he gave me, but all my, and I wasn't kind of go back and buy more shit because I wasn't a collector. I had read them already. And because of this dude's religious delusion, man, I lost my whole line of Inferno comics. And to be honest with you, I kind of stopped collecting regularly for several years after that, because money wasn't easy. I was raking leaves and mowing lawns and shoveling and shit. I was a kid. I didn't have money to just fucking, I couldn't go to my grandma and be like, give me some walking around money. Like the money I spent on comics and shit, I had to scrape together.
So it's like it kind of grew out of that phase of, like how you said, being a collector and just straight consumer. I'd rather consume this than be.
Yeah,
that.
I was never like, yeah, I'm gonna just put this away. Like I had homies that were like collecting baseball cards and shit and trying to encase them in glass and shit. Well, I the type, you give me a baseball card, I'd put that shit in the spokes of my bike so my bike would make that puttering sound like a motorcycle. I ain't give a shit. Once I look at the thing, chew the gum, read the stats, I tape that shit in. So I was never, even though I was always in what is now called geek culture, I didn't save shit. I got some comic books around and stuff. I got a few action figures left over, and I was so happy that I had sons, because then I got to relive a lot of that shit. But then they didn't get into G.I. Joes and shit I like. My sons were into Ninja Turtles and Ben 10.
Oh yeah, I fuck with Ben 10 and Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, lame.
Nah.
And I'm like,
I
forget
beg to
Ben
differ.
10. Look at Thundar the Barbarian. And they'd be like, that old shit. You don't get that shit out my face. So I thought I was going to be able to be like, I got sons, so I won't look so weird running in and out of the comic shop and toy section. But my sons, they had their own interest. And I was trying, but I don't know. I mean, people are able to indoctrinate their children into religions and shit, but I couldn't indoctrinate them into my childhood interests. They had their own shit. But yeah, my oldest was really into Ben 10. And then anime came. And I don't even speak. I just own both my sons.
Oh, I got
Oh, Jesus. I don't care what you got. I don't talk to me about no anime shit.
Well, no. Here's this one last question I need to ask you, okay? I heard you say that I don't know if it was first-person player games or if it was third-person player games that you don't fuck with. Which one is it?
First person.
Okay, now first person.
Like the disembodied gun floating on the screen. That shit is lame as hell. I play third person.
I play Fortnite with my little cousins.
No, that's third person.
As third person. Okay, I was finna say I didn't know if you were dissing on that, because I'm like, come on now, man. Like,
no,
Fortnite
is. I play Fortnite. Like my son. By the time I played Fortnite with my sons, but by the time they got good, it just lost all joy with me because I couldn't live. I couldn't make it.
That was like my dad with my two older brothers. I think the last time I talked to you, they were playing basketball with him. 21. He was like, they schooled the shit out of him. He was like, I'm not playing with you motherfuckers.
I played Fortnite like for 6 months. When it first came out, I played. I just had the basic skins and everything. And then these kids got so goddamn good. I'm like, what's the point? I'm just fodder.
I don't do the build. I don't do the build stuff. I'm on the zero build,
I was playing before that wasn't turning off build was an option. I played like the first 4 or 5 months, and my youngest son played that shit, and he was just going crazy on that shit and trying to shake us down, coming out of his room, eyes red. You got something in my V-Bucks. Season 5 is coming out. Can you hook a brother up? Like trying to spend money on that shit. I'm like, how do you call? You said it was a free game, and you didn't spend more money on that game anyway. But now he's Minecrafting, so he's all that.
I'm Minecraft too. I do a little.
I played. I still beat that. I could still beat my sons in what you call that shit? The multiplayer for Gears of War.
Oh, Halo? Do you
That's first person. Halo? I don't play Halo. I've never played Halo. You know what I played? Spartan Assault.
I've actually never seen that before.
You ever play like a dungeon crawler game like Diablo?
Diablo, yeah, I played, yeah.
So it's like a Halo version of that. Okay. It's like a top-down dungeon crawler. So I played Halo Spartan Assault. I tried playing Halo Wars because I like RTS games, but I don't. I have trouble playing RTS games on the consoles. I only play RTS games on PC. So I
See, I haven't even got into this PC gaming. I got an Xbox One that my brother gave to me, and I still haven't paid his ass for yet. So
Don't pay him.
I ain't
Hey, I
paid
paid
yet.
you in love, brotherly love.
It's been 2 years now. I've already
Yeah.
said it's been 2 years. He's been trying to get $200 out my ass. He ain't getting it from me.
Yeah, I got an Xbox One too, and half the games coming out now I can't even play. I want to play the new Mortal Kombat 1. I can't even play that.
Oh, it's not compatible. It's not
I'm just
cross
waiting.
compatible.
No, you can't play it on the one. You got to have an X or a S series. Can't play it. And I ain't about to go. I ain't nobody got money for that. Right.
I bought the last console.
I'll probably have an Xbox S or X in another 5-6 years. I don't mind.
The last console I bought was a PS4, and I pawned that shit so I could go on a vacation. Vacation.
Yeah, I don't play it, man. I have not had a PlayStation since the Xbox came out. I had like a PS1. I had the original PlayStation. Didn't even have a number. It was just the PlayStation. I had
everything was handed down to me. I started off with the Nintendo 64.
Yeah, things are handed down and gifted to me too. Or I just, people would get stuff for my sons, families. I'd be looking over their shoulders every Christmas. And they be pulling out them. What you get? What you got on my 40? What you got on my Fortnite? But yeah, PC games, like now I have a PC. One of my brothers hooked me up with a gaming PC, and I'm playing Dawn of War mod, unification mod. So that's how I get my happiness. I ain't gotta leave the country to have a good time. I can just
shoot.
Yeah.
Shoot. My happiness for right now is doing these conversations and having these conversations.
That's depressing.
Right now, so no. Don't get me wrong.
I didn't know you should have told me. I wouldn't be just rambling. I would actually start trying to answer your questions. You didn't tell me that. I didn't know I was here affecting a man's mental health. Next time, I know I said this last time. Next time I come on, I'm going to answer your questions and stay on top.
No, I think we stayed on topic, Diallo.
No more
for
rabbit
the most
holes.
part. When you talk about these topics, you're gonna have to somehow, some way go down some alley, some dark ass alley, and
it's a lot to squeeze in an hour and a half to 2 hour questions. Maybe if you could get more like topics that are easier to grab, like high value men and how these females are unworthy of high value men. And we could cover that topic in an hour and a half. But you want to cover Omnicide, Ecocide.
So that's like a 3-part.
If we could talk about, comedian beef. That's something you could cover within it. You'd be going too broad. If we could talk about how Sukiyana and Sexy Red are destroying the moral fabric of society. You need topics that we can grasp. Your
next week it'll be
too large.
Next episode with Diallo will be about Cat Williams. How about that?
Or how welfare destroyed the black family. Let's deal with some fallacies.
But to end it,
or how we could all get rich. Cryptocurrency and LLCs. Talk about some real shit.
I'm gonna end this.
But if you're on Xbox One, send me your gaming.
Indignite. I'll text it to you.
Send it to me. I'll beat your ass on one of these games if we play any of the same thing.
I would like to see you try.
I don't play no ball chasing games, no 2K. Madden. I don't play no ball chasing game.
I got NBA 2K21 and I've never played it. I ain't even opened it yet.
I ain't gonna do nothing on a video game I could do in real life. I could play basketball. Like shit. I can't hunt demons in real life. I'm
gonna end this here, but before I do, this is just for my viewers and whatnot. Currently right now I am on what would be considered a short-term disability leave due to the fact that I have sciatic pain from working a job at Amazon. And they've this whole entire time have been fucking me over with either we meet your accommodations, but we need you to get new accommodations now because the time frame doesn't match. So it's like consistently fucking with my health and then also denying me what was rightfully workman's compensation that I should have been getting, and now I'm only getting short-term disability. So if there's anybody that's out there that watches this and sees this, these are the ways that you can help me. I do have a fundraiser on PayPal that is going to be helping not just myself but my dog, who is an emotional support dog for me. So if anybody is out there that can help, you like the content that's being produced, I really do appreciate it. Even if you can't, liking and subscribing and sharing this is just as important to me as any dollar amount that comes my way. So again, anybody who's out there that's able to help, there's right here. I'll leave it up for a couple more seconds. Please do. And everybody who's watched this episode, every other episode, I just want to thank you for that, that generosity of just watching, being a viewer and listening. So again, Diallo, thank you.
Thank you
for
for
coming
having
on.
me. Thank you for
And
having
hopefully
me. All y'all kick in, bang in, kick in.
Please. I'm hoping I can get you on another time. I know I don't want to, I don't want to flood you with your schedule and whatnot. I also don't want no beef with BPM, and so I'm gonna keep
BPM, man, they be hating on me, man. Only friends I have over there are Geechee and Jared. Only friends I have over there.
And I could even say Jared potentially will be a guest on this year. I'm waiting. I'm trying to remain respectful to him being on vacation, or but I don't know when that starts.
He on vacation. He picks cotton at night. He don't know how to vacation. That's just another way. He don't know how to. He always picking cotton at night. Don't let it. That's a lie if he tell you he went on vacation. He don't know how to ball. He don't know how to kick it. And ball is in his name, and I ain't never seen him ball.
You're gonna get me in trouble, man.
Change his name, Jared Bald.
No, I want to give some announcements out there on Martin Luther King Day. I will be having a conversation with Dr. Gerald Horn. He will be back on. And Cornel West got back to me, had a conversation with his wife regarding kind of the miscommunication is what I'll call it now. But someone on the back end that was working their social medias knew who I was, did not fuck with me, and decided to not recognize me as someone who has had Dr. West on, and is going to have him on again. So they're in a new, I don't know if this is the fourth stage of revigorating their ranks, but I'm hoping that I can get him on in the next couple weeks for a conversation regarding Palestine, because I do have some things I would like to get across to him that I didn't get to say the last time. But that's kind of like some news updates. Norman Finkelstein, that's one person who I'm gonna just keep it short and sweet. I don't have 100,000 followers or 10,000 subscribers, so his white ass is not going to come on my podcast. So for all the viewers that have been asking me, that have been direct messaging me, asking for Norman Finkelstein, he has told me, and I have the emails to prove it, he will not be coming on my podcast.
That's fine. I can do a pretty good Norman Finkelstein impression if you like. I can do. So if you need someone to stand in, I can do.
Let's set it up. Let's
Finkelstein impression. The Zionist.
I have I got a lot of respect for his work, but there's just a lot of things that I see. There's a lot of things that I see that he's done over the past that he's yet to acknowledge that were wrong. And then at the same time too, again, I don't have 10,000 followers, subscribers. I'm not this big shot, willing to kiss somebody's ass journalist, bend over.
Now you're dissing everybody who did get him on. Out here.
I at this point, if he sees this and he does, and it warrants him to never want to come back or never want to come on, then I'm cool with that. I'm completely fine. But there's one thing that I don't
I hope he
like
does see
is
this. He needs somebody to do audio video interviews. Like I said, I got a great Finkelstein impression. It's kind of it's a lot like my Larry David impression, but like I said, I could have done this whole show on in my Finkelstein voice.
Your
You could have
Finkelstein.
told me. I didn't know you was trying to hunt him down.
No, I have been asking him I've asked him numerous occasions to come on, and he's consistently given me the most baseless, the most untrue answer, which is he's taking time off. But yet I find his ass on Mark Lamont's platform. I find him on. I mean, I'm not to throw anybody under the bus or anything, but I've seen him on numerous Sabby Sabs, Bad Faith, you know, and a lot of these people have good things and have things in common, which is that they got a large following base that I don't have. Which
But here's
I feel
the thing, man. When you do get big, then you'll have the pleasure of declining his request.
Oh,
to
most
come on.
definitely. But most definitely, as soon as I get that email from his
And
white
you can
ass,
start
I'm telling
sharing
him,
those memes like the sisters be sharing, like that sister with her baggage
the
walking
way
up
you
the
act,
mountain. You didn't want me then, so don't want me now. Sorry.
you know,
When you come
turn,
on, when you finally get your hair did and your lashes straight and your eyebrows, and you come on like, Norman, sorry.
no,
So
Mr.
that's something to look forward to when you do blow up. And then
Well,
he be trying to be like, hey, when he's sliding your DMs, and like, listen, attention this, hey, let me come through. Like, I'm sorry. I'm leaving that in the past. You can click your nails together. Sorry. So that's something to look. I'm just trying to inspire you, bro. That's what I'm here for.
I as much as I probably, sound a little down or pissed off, this man, I know for sure, and there's people right now too. I can even say, people have been asking me to have Yvette Carnell on.
Yeah. I'm sure she'll come through.
Yeah, but see, then I'm giving a platform to these individuals to spread disinformation and create again more false narratives than the individuals are gonna have to unfucking digest. And so when it comes to her, it's the same as Norman Finkelstein. She will not be on this podcast at all.
Really? She got it like that. Yvette got it like that.
I don't
you haven't. She ain't welcome.
No, she's not welcome on this platform at all. I don't have zero respect for people who want to try and create narratives that are that are riddled in anti-immigration, that are riddled in eugenics. They were funded by John Stanton, over $1.1 million for an organization that she was a part of that was anti-immigration, and she stands on that shit. Till this day, she stands on it. I don't need that's like you guys having Dr. Fubar on EYL,
I don't listen, I don't determine that. I don't determine who come and who don't come. So if Fubar does show up, I'll sit there across from him. But I don't have that say.
There's a list of people that I already have that are 86 from this podcast because of just fuckery or I just don't like you. And I have all the liberty in the world with my platform to do that.
Yeah.
But
you end up like me. Nobody will come on my show.
What's crazy is, Diallo, is I set notifications to watch your show, but the link to get in, I don't ever see it to answer questions.
I can't speak. I get all these complaints, man. I just try to enjoy obscurity. I don't even know why. I don't know if the algorithm. It could be something I'm doing wrong. I don't know.
No. I mean,
and then every other day I get a notification that they deleted one of my videos, or my video is no longer public, or they, what am I to do, man? What can I do?
Hopefully this one don't get deleted.
Just censor it.
I try and make it as censored as possible, but it I mean, my videos, the only video that deleted, I think, was when I talked about Obama, and Obama's administrator that was anti-Arab was like all up in that guy's face, the halal He was a halal, a food truck vendor,
Mhm.
and he kept harassing him, kept going to his you know, where he was at and saying, you know, like, you know, what these people do to you, right? Like you know, these, you know, they rape your babies and they do all this other type of stuff. And it was just like, I put that video out and it didn't get enough views for it to even reach anywhere. And then I got an email saying, oh, we're gonna have to remove this video because, you know, it doesn't meet our guidelines and whatever. So I was like, okay, whatever, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's all in the game, yo.
yeah. Again, thank you, Diallo,
Thank you.
for coming on, and I'll touch base with you the next time that I could have you on.
All right. Yeah, anytime, bro.
Okay, but it has to be for the Norman Finkelstein, though. It can't be.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. It's failing the scientist. Yeah, I can do it. I'll knock that out. I don't
All
know.
right.
You might get flagged. But I'll do my damnedest. All right, bro.
All right, you have a good one.
Peace.
See you guys in the next one.